So you want to make a branching dialogue system in Godot. One way I've experimented with doing it involves using visual scripting, but all visual scripting really is a system of nodes being interconnected. Each node has its own underlying code, so they act like functions in of themselves. Control is passed down the chain from one node to the next. But you know what else works that way but has more direct access to game logic and an interface that doesn't make you want to die? The entirety of Godot game engine. Specifically the node tree-based scene system. There's really no reason we can't make a branching dialogue system in Godot where each unique conversation is a scene comprised of custom node types internested. Then there's a menu that loads up whichever scene file corresponds with the branching conversation you're wanting to run, and then it just needs to move step by step down the hierarchy, running the script of each node it passes as it goes. Every time there's a fork, stop for player input. When you hit the end of a branch, the conversation ends. In our case, we're making a first-person RPG in Godot where you are stuck in a generational spaceship. The primary mode of dialogue is topics-based, where you have a list of topics you can ask NPCs about that they have pre-written responses to, and you unlock them as you go. But we also have a more conventional branching choice system for key story moments and stuff like accepting quests. Originally, we had a completely different way of doing the branching dialogue though. It involved having a GD script on the actual menu that got user input and did hard game logic, and a visual script that had each unique conversation as a function for the branching. The two scripts had to work together and constantly pass control back and forth between each other and reference one another. It was a whole thing. This system was perfectly functional. We certainly could just move forward with it, but it had a lot of shortcomings that I'd rather not deal with. The main advantage of using visual scripting is supposed to be clarity and ease of editing, over if we say wrote each conversation out as a bunch of nested if statements. But you can see that even with just a few simple test conversations, this is already a jumbled mess that really isn't that easy to follow. Also, handling data and doing actual game logic in Godot's visual scripting language is a nightmare, so the menu's GD script wound up doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I should specify that we're using Godot 3.5. Godot 4 removed the visual scripting altogether, and I can see why, but that in of itself is another shortcoming. It's one more system in our game that's incompatible with later versions of the engine. And even if we finish this game in Godot 3.5, I don't really want to invest time into a system that I can't port into future projects. And we were just about to start implementing actual game content, so if there's a time to completely redo the dialogue system, it's now. We experimented with a few ways of doing the new node-based dialogue, and this is what we landed on. We have our menu that has a function for displaying an NPC line and one for creating dialogue options for the player. Each unique conversation is a scene that is comprised of these special nodes that represent the flow of the conversation and can have different effects on the world. The conversation you want to have then gets instanced as a child of the menu at runtime. Now the menu's process essentially has two modes: progression and standby. In progression, it goes down the conversation's scene tree, calling this run function on each node it passes. Each node's run function is where any game logic happens, and if the node wants to show a dialogue line or give the player options, then those functions get called from within it. The run function then returns the next node to go to, which is just its child in most cases. But it's important that the menu use run to get the next node, because it gives us the option to have a node jump us to another branch or loop back to a previous node. Using these go-to type nodes do hurt the legibility, but it's nice to have the option if we ever feel the need to use it. Whenever the function create dialogue option is called, the menu enters standby mode. When in standby, the menu doesn't progress through the tree, but waits for the player to pick a dialogue option. If we want to select it, the menu progresses to the child of the current node, corresponding to the option selected, and exits standby. For sake of comparison, I've one-to-one recreated our old test conversations. I have to say, it was night and day how much faster it was to make these conversations with the new system. You can see that the new version is visually much more condensed. However, we can also see some of the node-based system's drawbacks here. Like, we can tell that this is a line and this is a dialogue option, but we need to click on each one and look at the inspector to see the specific lines. Also, I underestimated how much we'd wind up using these go-to nodes, which basically kill the readability. I have to click on it and see the full node path, then trace it to figure out where it goes. Now that I think about it, this was one of the reasons we didn't go for a node-based approach to begin with. I'm trying to think if there's some tool I can make that could make this visually clearer, but I don't know. Overall, the two ways of doing it are both just as hard to read, just in different ways. The new system definitely has the advantage of speed of implementation. It's so easy to add new node types that have different functionality, and I can put together conversation scenes rapidly. As I mentioned, we're just about to start implementing actual game content, and I think that at this point, efficiency and ease of iteration need to be the priority. So we'll be moving forward with this, despite its drawbacks.